before you submit your reports. And also be patient and Google if you encounter any errors. And don't just use lists to put them. Don't put all your data in lists all the time. Try to use the other data structures available. So a couple of libraries I'll be using: OpenPyXL, which which will handle all the Excel files in Excel SX format. Fuzzy Wuzzy, which will be used for fuzzy string matching, and RE, which is Python's regular expressions library, which we use for pattern matching. So there are two cases I came across while I was working at Nestle. Case one, where you had to reference data using a unique identifier, such as a distributor code, a customer code, email addresses, or phone numbers. And these cases are a lot simpler to work with because you have a unique identifier that's unique to each person. So you don't have to worry about you coming into a situation whereby people have the data is misaligned. And the opposite case occurs for non-unique identifiers, where you have to use something like names. You won't believe how many people bear the same name as Mama Jinde or Mama Ayo. So a typical scenario: your boss gives you 20 Excel files with 5 sheets each, and he wants you to check if the vendors are active. And it gives you an Excel file containing the list of active vendors, and also says you can't go home until you finish the task. If I didn't know Python, this would have been my reaction. But because I know Python, yeah. So our game plan, since we have a list of active vendors, we simply put those vendors, the vendor codes, in a set. Then after we put it in a set, we use that set to do the matching, to check whether the vendors are active or inactive. Then if they're active, we perform certain operations. If they're not active, we perform a set of operations. So it's time for the demo. So here we have the Excel file containing the list of active vendors. So step one will be to get this Excel file into Python, and then we can start working on it. So we get this Excel file by just simply saying workbook equals to, this is just a path to the Excel file. Yeah. Then we can then access this particular sheet by just simply saying So now we have the sheet in Python. So now we can see that the vendor codes are in column A. If we want to access a particular cell in an Excel sheet, all we have to say is, for this particular cell, it says A1. All we have to just say is sheet. Yeah, and if we want to get the value, just say. So yeah, so looking at this now, getting this a set of vendor codes is just as easy as looping over this column A and getting all the vendor codes. So there are a couple of ways you can loop over all the cells in Python. You can loop over all the cells. The quickest way is to use the columns generator. So we just say columns equals to. Now, since we're dealing with the first column, all we have to just say is so we have all the cells in the first column in a tuple. So now we want to put all the values of all the cells in the first column in a set. So we just say. So here we've initialized an empty set. Then we loop over all the columns in column A. Then we use the regular expression library RE and this pattern. This pattern makes sure that only vendor codes are being accessed by saying at the beginning of the string, you check if you have VDR there, and you have a bunch of numbers following it, and at the end. So that means you don't have any other thing in that cell, in case there are any funky values in this particular sheet, just to avoid them. So now we have a set of active vendors. We can then use that to loop over all these Excel files and check whether the vendors are active or inactive. Let's just take a look at one. So you can see here that it has the vendor codes here, where we can use to check whether the cells are inactive or the vendors are active or inactive. And there's also a status column. So there are a couple of neat ways. Instead of specifying and looping over or doing it on a one-by-one basis, there are a couple of cool functions that we can look at that can help us do this a lot quicker. The first function we'll be dealing with is the find vendor code column and row. So this function basically looks for the first occurrence of a vendor code in a sheet. In case the vendor codes are misaligned, you don't want a situation where you start checking all 100 sheets, because we have 20. You start checking all the sheets to check if the vendor codes are in the same column. So this function just loops over all the rows and looks for the first vendor code occurrence and returns the cell letter and the row. So we also have the find status column function. This looks for the status column in all the sheets so that we can easily put the active or inactive designation. If it matches this particular string, then it simply returns the column letter. But if there's a misspelling in the name in the sheet, like for example this one, not this one. Yeah, this one, there's a misspelling in the status, and also there are extra words in there, so it will not pass this particular test. So by using fuzzy wuzzy, this is fuzz from fuzzy wuzzy. This is the most aggressive form of it because it tokenizes and compares strings based on intersecting substrings and remainders. So here we just provide the word to look for status, and it checks for the word status, the similarity in the word status. Doesn't matter how many words we have here or how many other things we have here. So far we have a word that's very similar to status, and it passes the threshold of 80%, our code will still work. And we also have the find active vendors column. This will do the all our operations, like for example, going row by row, checking if the vendor is active and putting the designation in the active column, and also highlighting all the rows for that particular vendor. Also, and if it's not active, it will simply go to the active column and just put inactive. And here, this is our run task function that first of all loops over all the cells, all the Excel files here. And after looping over, it accesses all the sheets one by one and performs the find active vendors function. So yeah, we're ready to just run our task. Yes, it takes a little bit. It's kind of heavy because we're dealing with about 100 sheets, so it takes a little bit of time. Yeah, it's done. So we can, let's quickly go. We can see here our code still works despite the active colon being misspelled and extra words were in there because of this particular one. And also, you can see that it automatically highlights all the columns. So that's just a check. That's a really simple example of what you can do. So now we can move on to the. So that's just a simple example. Because we have a unique identifier, our code structure was very simple, and we can be sure the data is correct because of that unique identifier. So now we have a case where we have to start matching by names. Our boss sends us 2 Excel files. On each sheet, there are promoters and their earnings stated row by row. Your boss wants you to consolidate all the earnings into one sheet. You have no unique identifier, and you have to match them by their names. That's my reaction if I didn't know how to use Fuzzy Wuzzy. Even with Fuzzy Wuzzy, I have this reaction also because even with Fuzzy Wuzzy, it's not still a perfect solution, and you still have to cross-check the data afterwards, which isn't ideal. So we just do a quick demo. Let's just have a look at the Excel file. So as we can see here, these are the 2 files we are meant to cross-check. And if we find matches, we have to put them row by row. As the ideal solution for this is to use a nested dictionary, because with a nested dictionary, we can narrow our searches to individual sheets instead of just looking at all the states. We can just say, okay, if we're looking in Abuja here, we'll also be looking at Abuja here. So we load these 2 Excel files into 2 separate nested dictionaries, and then cross-reference them using process from Fuzzy Wuzzy. So as you can see here, we've loaded, with this function, we load the 2 Excel files into, we first load the 2 Excel files, then it will loop over the Excel files sheet by sheet, and then and then making a nested dictionary of the names of the promoters and their earnings. 2 separate nested dictionaries. And after that, we feed those nested dictionaries into the consolidate workbook function. So in this function, we would use process. First, we will loop over the first nested dictionary. Then we'll use process to feed the promoter, meaning that we will check this one. We will first check at we will check this name here, and then we would then make a list of all of these. Since these are the keys in the nested dictionary, we'll just simply say dot keys to make our choices for a process to pick a choice from. This is how process works. So if you have eggs, ham, eggs, bacon, blockchain, process would so it will pick a match based on eggs and this, based on the similarity. So because of the threshold I've chosen, any match that is above 80% would be accepted. Anyone that's below will be disregarded. So after we get our results, we just put all the answers in an Excel file we generate here, and using the fillings and borders and values, we create our output Excel file. So we just do. Then takes a while because of the process. Yeah, it's done now. I can check to see our result. We can see here that some of the matches, some of the names are, some of the strings are misaligned, so normal string operations will be a little bit difficult because of the fact that they are not in the same case, and you have, for example, gold here and wake gold. So some strings are missing, some are out of order, some are in uppercase while some are in lowercase. So it's a bit difficult to just use normal string operations and get good matches. Although Fuzzy Wuzzy has really helped us here, but there are still going to be some matches you're not going to be sure of. But because I put a high threshold, a lot of those matches have been disregarded. You may have to play with the threshold a little bit, depending on what you're trying to achieve, and also have to look at some of the other processes, some of the other functions from Fuzzy Wuzzy. So, for example, this is a match. This isn't. You can clearly see that this isn't a good match, but you can see here this is also a good match. So you can see where the frustration comes in. So you have to validate your data after. So any questions?
Thank you. Well, Damola, I'm sorry about that. So. I'm not sure we all appreciate this Excel Heroism 101. For real, this is awesome stuff. If you're going to do it one by one, you don't know how much time you spend on it. This is amazing. I'm going to have to see you after this stuff. Okay, so if you have questions, any question? Wow. No question? May I have question? Sorry. What resources can, if I want to just start doing all this cool stuff, how can I start?
Yeah, I have a couple. So the best thing, there's a chapter in, there is a particular chapter here. I hope the internet is working. It takes you through going through all of this. There's a particular link here for people who are just beginning. So it takes you through all the processes. So you don't have to know the entire Python library, but just a few, just to work with Excel files, it will take you through the steps needed.
Okay, we'll get the slide after.
Okay,
Okay, any more question, please? Question? It's like we're all tired. Okay. What?
What library do you use for this Excel?
OpenPyXL.
OpenPyXL.
Okay.
Question?
Sorry, hello?
Yeah.
Did you write some form of coding with that, or you just injected the values you got? Because I can think of another way you can do it, like using a VB, the microbe inside the Excel itself.
Where I don't like using those ones is because I could just go on my terminal and even schedule this. So in case I get the data, I just schedule it and it works for me. I don't have to start opening the Excel files using the macros or anything like that. So I just immediately it's automated and I can do other things.
One more question, please. Question? Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, Damola Aderinwale.